These battle lines being drawn. Nobody's right if everybody wrong. When people speak with their mind, getting so much resistance from behind. We got to stop the children. What's that sound? Everybody look, it's going down.
Hello everyone, this is Lauren Steiner and welcome to tonight's edition of The Robust Opposition. For those of you who have not seen this show before, I am an organizer, activist, and independent journalist who has just moved from Los Angeles to Asheville, and I have been doing this show for about 4.5 years. I interview other organizers and activists and independent journalists, as well as authors, elected officials, and candidates for public office. I am on, I will say, the left-wing side of the political spectrum. Just so you know, I was the lead organizer of Los Angeles for Bernie Sanders in 2016 and was a delegate for him at the National Convention in Philadelphia. It is my great pleasure to welcome to tonight's show another activist that I had the great pleasure of meeting, Callie Warner. How are you tonight, Callie?
I'm great, Lauren, and I just have to say it was such a treat to meet you the other day. It was like last week, and
yeah.
And I love your show, and I am just so grateful this is my first professional type podcast to be on. So
I'm so honored that you've chosen my show to do it on.
Well, I'm glad you moved here. I think we've got quite a future ahead.
I know. We're going to be like Lucy and Ethel, I think, out there.
Yeah, we are. I got lots of ideas for you, honey.
Yeah, I saw, or maybe Thelma and Louise. I don't know.
Yeah, Thelma and Louise. I think that's pretty good. The fact that we discovered that we both went to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts.
Right. And I was on this coast, and you were on my coast,
I was in LA. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Anyway, when I saw you, I think it was, I don't know if it was KLOS or the Asheville Citizen Times, but I saw you protesting this Woodfin development, and I thought, that's a woman I want to get to know. So before we talk about that development and the other ones and Grow Wise Buncombe, which I should introduce you, you are the co-founder of Grow Wise Buncombe, an organization fighting irresponsible development. We're also going to talk about what responsible development looks like. Let me just ask you how you got started in this kind of work. What's in your background?
Well, I am a native of Asheville, so I grew up loving these mountains and spending all my childhood in them. And then I moved to Chapel Hill, and I was living out in the country, and a 650-acre dairy farm was a place that I would walk a lot. It was a defunct dairy farm, and it was in between two preserved pieces of land, and so it was a contiguous wildlife corridor. And I learned that there was this huge development planned for that 650 acres for 1,500 homes and a neo-traditional village. And I got into this because of fear, really. The fear of losing what I love. So I spearheaded this journey, really not knowing what it was going to result in. And 350 people, and 2 years later, we buried that development. That land is now held in perpetuity, and the area farmers put their properties in perpetuity after that piece of property was preserved. So now instead of 650 acres, there's probably around 2,000 acres that are preserved. And what that has done is, it is between Chapel Hill and Hillsborough. What that has done is not only create wildlife corridors, but it has kept that area from becoming a sprawled mess, which would have increased property taxes by, so much. And instead, the health, safety, and welfare of the people who live there is great. The water quality, the air quality, the way of life is just, it's fabulous. And so that's how I got into it. And then when I moved back to Asheville 6 years ago, I thought, oh goody, I'm coming home to my tree loving home where everybody preserves nature and loves trees. And within about 15 minutes of arriving, I realized, oh my gosh, this isn't happening here. So I got on the Tree Protection Task Force and started learning about how many of our urban forests have been decimated. And that just slayed me. I was just shocked. And then I started getting involved with developments here, like Crossroads, which is over off Brevard Road. And I was absolutely amazed that an apartment complex was approved over an existing wetlands, right on top of wetlands. And so it led me further into the Asheville world in Buncombe County and Woodfin, and then I became aware of Richmond Hill, and now, of course, I'm aware of Charlotte Street, and of course, then we have the Raytheon military complex, and there's so many developments, there's just so much. And one of the things that I learned when I was fighting University Station in Chapel Hill was I met this wonderful man, Randall Arendt, who is from Maine. And he came down, he is a PhD in open space cluster developments, responsible development. And he guided us through how that development in Chapel Hill was not an open space cluster development. It was also not a neo-traditional development that Andreas Dwani had promoted, and what is happening in Florida. It was neither of those. And one of the things that I really realized is that in order to have a sustainable community, a smart, sustainable, long-lasting community, you have to consider your wildlife corridors, your air quality, your water quality, and you have to make decisions based on those factors.
All right, well, you're jumping ahead to my subsequent question about what responsible development looks like. So let's talk a little bit more about some of these irresponsible, developments, and also grow Wise Buncombe. How did you're one of the co-founders, you told me it operates sort of by consensus, it's a non-hierarchical organization. How was it started? Who's involved, and what is your mission?
So it started so in Crossroads, I would say we have been in existence maybe 5 months now. We are new. Jess Wickstrom and Brooke Heaton were part of the Crossroads concern. They live in that area. And so they joined. Susan Sertain and Karen McNeil were on the Tree Protection Task Force with me. Susan has Buncombe County trees and the heritage trees, and she's done an incredible job preserving trees, giving honor to our beautiful old growth trees. And Karen has done a lot of work in the saving trees in this area as well. So that was the core group we started it. And then Alan Golden joined us. He is from New York, and he fought a big development in New York and won. And Stevie Jameson is currently dealing with a development in her backyard on her family land, adjacent to her family land. And so we got together sort of with this idea that what we wanted was, we were all feeling the loss and feeling the pressure of development in this area. And so we wanted to have balanced growth with natural resources, and we want transparency. We don't want to be told that a development is coming in our backyards on Christmas Eve, like everybody at Richmond Hill got. And so we want to involve as many people in this community, help them find their voices, and really fight for what will keep this area beautiful for generations to come.
Yeah, let's talk about that Woodfin project, because I had just moved here when all that came out, and it seemed to me like they were trying to sneak it in during the holiday, during COVID. Tell us a little bit about that project, the scope of it, the scale of it, what it would involve, and why it's so bad.
So the Richmond Hill neighborhood is city, and it is a dead-end street, and the National Guard is at the end there, and there is also the Richmond Hill Park, which is a beautiful forested park. So the park sits here, then there is this 90 acres that got annexed into Woodfin. And then adjacent to that is the Ohm Sanctuary, which has 54 acres that was put into perpetuity. So you've got these two beautiful held in perpetuity pieces of property. And in the middle there is this 90-acre parcel. It is completely wooded with mature growth trees. It is absolutely gorgeous, and very steep slopes that go down to the French Broad River. The Silver Line or the railroad is right there, and it is a functioning railroad. There's trains going by there many times a day. And across the river is the Silver Line industry, where they're putting the Silver Line Park, and they're putting the Wave, the future Wave, which is going to be fabulous so that people can kayak and have all these rapids and everything. And Woodfin has put the money with other, the people participating in this, including Silver Line. And then they're going to have 25 miles of bike lanes. So they're doing all this great outdoor, fabulous stuff. And then comes this developer from Florida who looks at this 90 acres and says, wow, I want to put office space and 1,500 or 13, I don't know what the number is exactly now, but a lot of luxury apartments on a very steep slope on a wooded piece of property. And what will happen as a result of that? Because the carbon sequestration there is incredible. When it rains, those trees suck up all the water. The minute you level those trees and put up high rises and impervious surface, where is that water going to go? And Woodfin does not have environmental impact studies the way that we are encouraging them to incorporate in their planning department and requirements that need to happen. So right now, if that development went through, they would be going through a neighborhood that has been established for 70 years. There are people there who have lived there for their entire lives. This is a middle-class neighborhood. There are fabulous people there. I've met them all. They are absolutely salt of the earth, fabulous people. And in their backyards, they've got the park, which draws a lot of people in for disc golf. So they already have traffic. They have 3 nursing homes. They have the National Guard. And then they want to bring in 1,350 apartments, which is going to add 4,000 more people. And to get there, you go across the bridge, across the French Broad River, and every day, twice a day, there are these semi trucks that jackknife to try and make this steep curve. It is insane. It is like not in the right place. Woodfin, once they think of tax base, increased tax base, are like, woo la la. It's great to build a tax base. The problem is that is in the wrong place. They should take that luxury apartment building and move it someplace else where it is not going to damage so much of the ecology. It's going to complete the sediment and runoff is going to just further destroy the French Broad River, which is already, as we know, very compromised.
Okay, so they are saying that it's going to bring in $1.5 million in taxes every year, which is 16% more than what they already have, which is pretty significant. Do you think that is the only consideration that these town fathers have in terms of deciding to approve this, or do you think there's something else going on?
Well, what is deceptive about this is that is a really, really like enticing number. But what is really the reality is who is going to pay for the infrastructure? Who is going to pay for all of the environmental impacts, that future impacts that will result from taking this many trees and doing this much construction in a wooded area on a steep slope? Who is going to pay for that? We are going to pay for that, our tax dollars. So when you look at that number, when you start whittling it away, that it gets whittled away. There's ample evidence that supports that raw land is much better, much cheaper, much higher tax credit overall in the long haul of life than the amount of impacts that we will have to pay for. And that developer will be long gone. So right. It's sort of dangling something that is really not true. It's a false kind of figure, I guess, is the only thing I can say. And
from what you've told me, that the town of Woodfin is the only governmental entity that has to approve this thing, and they've only had one public hearing. What has been the reaction in the community? How have you been organizing against this? And do you think you have any chance of stopping it?
Well, I think that one thing that is really, that we keep honing in on, the community of Richmond Hill, which is an incredible community, and they have worked really hard since Christmas Eve. They banded together. Shelley Stallmack, who owns the Ohm Sanctuary, Robert McGee, so many in that community. They hired an attorney. They're trying to raise funds, and they have a GoFundMe page on Facebook, and they're trying to raise funds so that they can pay for impact studies that are not required by Woodfin. The residents don't want it. Nobody wants it. They are all saying it's going to be just a catastrophic thing, and that they have to build a bridge. If the developers build a bridge over the river, then the Richmond Hill community will not have the burden of all of that traffic across it, which it cannot handle. I mean, that is, talk about not protecting the health, safety, and welfare. And that's where our city council and mayor have not taken a stand on this. And we have been encouraging them to oppose this development because it's city roads. So we city payers, my taxes are going to go up because of Richmond Hill, and Asheville is going to reap zero tax benefits. That makes no sense to me. So what we want is for Woodfin to require the developer to build a bridge first, so that there will be absolutely no deaths on Richmond Hill Road, which is going to happen. I mean, it's just, you can't put that much traffic on that little road and in that community. So it's been really tough with COVID. We don't have the capacity to be in these meetings, and it's all virtual. And if somebody wants to speak, if something goes wrong with their computer or phone, which has happened to me several times, and it's really frustrating. And honestly, I think they should not make a decision on this until the community can, just slow down and build the bridge or not do it, because there is the option to have that land, to have the landowner get money and have that land be put in perpetuity so it can be a very large, beautiful park. Imagine, land is going faster than Grant took Richmond all around this area. And if that whole area could be preserved, it would help the health of our river, which is really getting compromised more and more.
Right.
The Raytheon military plant, they're paving over the wetlands there. They're going to.
Do you have any allies in the city council or whatever? What do they call it in Woodfin? Is it a city council?
Well, the Woodfin, I cannot say that there is anyone on the Woodfin town board that is in our favor. I haven't really witnessed that. I think the developer has been, he's been chummying up to them for many months before the community even knew about this. Yeah. So we were blindsided, and that's really, the thing about it is a lot of elected officials sort of look at us as NIMBYs, not in my bag. And we're sort of like the nattering, buzzing things they can't stand. But the reality is we're all NIMBYs. Everything that happens around us affects us all. And it's time to sort of put that aside. And instead of saying, oh, here's somebody and they're opposing, and being negative about the passion that people have to preserve their investments. Yeah, we all preserve our investments. We preserve our children. We take care of our children. We take care of our land and our homes and our investments. And when things come in that are going to be catastrophic to our investments, yeah, we're not happy about it. And we vote our council mayor into office to protect the health, safety, and welfare of their constituents. Right. And that doesn't happen, boy, honey, I'm a good old girl. I can fix you a casserole and I can kill you too. And there is just at this point in this time, we don't have time to sit back. We have got to fight for what we know is going to be.
Okay, well, let me just put on my organizer's hat for a second and tell you that there needs to be political consequences to somebody if this goes through. I mean, we had a situation where I just moved from. I lived in an area of Los Angeles called Benedict Canyon, and it was one of the most bucolic canyons of all the fabled ones. People may have heard of Laurel Canyon, Coldwater Canyon, Benedict Canyon, famous for the Manson murders, unfortunately. But they wanted, there's a guy who wanted to put in a hotel, and it would have been the same thing. This is a residential area, and he wanted to change the zoning. And we knew that we would have to pressure our city councilman from that district, because the rest of the city council always deferred when it came to development projects to the counselor whose district it was. And this guy was termed out, and he's planning to run for controller of the city of Los Angeles. And everybody individually and collectively let it be known to him that he would not get our support unless he fought for us. And it was a first step in trying to get, him on our side. Now he's on our side, but the guy is still trying to get his zoning variance. So I don't know, maybe you need to be lobbying these people individually, collectively. We also hired an attorney, and there's always the route of tying things up in court. But we're kind of getting ahead, and I want to get to the Charlotte Street development. So why don't you talk a little bit about what that development is all about and why you're fighting that one?
So Charlotte Street has 13 historic homes on it that are currently occupied. 29 units are occupied as affordable housing, and it is true affordable housing. They could all be, there could be 40 affordable units, but the owner of the property has basically been a slumlord and let the properties go to rack and ruin, which there's absolutely no repercussions of that, which there should be. And so now there is a proposal to come in and level those houses, displace these people, which the council was always talking about equity, affordable housing, and homelessness. Well, here we have existing affordable housing, and these people are going to be displaced, just like when I was growing up. Valley Street was an African-American community. They got displaced. We're always displacing people, but we talk a good game. It's time to honor things. It's time to really look at what equity means and say, no, these people are living in affordable units. Yeah, there's lead paint coming off of the porches and the walls and going into our water system, but that can be remedied for a lot less cost, and especially to our environment, than to take really well-built structures and put them in an already stressed landfill. So let's just start with that. Why do that? We also, the town passed a tree ordinance, so they cannot take these beautiful historic trees down. They have to be more sensitive to it. I don't know whether they're doing it or not, but 90% of the tree canopy that currently exists on Charlotte Street will be gone. So right out of the gate, these are two things that Asheville claims to care about that they are just wiping out very quickly. And they're going to replace it with a very large, modern structure that you can see in Charlotte, in Raleigh, in Atlanta. It's happening all over. It's like kudzu. They're coming in. So there's a term for it called fart-architecture. And it is happening across our country, where it takes the integrity and beauty of an area. And this historic area is quite beautiful. It's why people come to Asheville. They come to Asheville for the beauty, the historic quality, the mountains, and they're wiping it out, and they're going to build this very large, high, multi 181 units or something of a modern thing with a bunch of office space. We don't need the office space. COVID has taught us everybody's working from home. We don't need that. What we need, we had architects in the neighborhood who generously gave their time doing a design that would preserve those 13 houses, renovate them, and put buildings behind them saving the trees, saving the beautiful stone wall, saving the integrity of the houses, and there would be a lot more livability, and it wouldn't be an urban thing coming in. The problem with this is that if this development gets approved, there is no stopping it all over the rest of Montford. Everywhere is fair game. The thing we have to do is not allow this type of thing to happen in historic areas. And if we can keep those houses and do the beautiful design that was done by the wonderful things. They also, the Preservation Society has offered to purchase that property. So it's again, not NIMBYs. No, you can't come here. We all know development has to happen. But there's responsible ways to do development and there's irresponsible ways to do development. And if we get rid of the integrity of this beautiful city, which is this historic quality, these beautiful historic homes, and replace them with something that does not fit in any way, shape, or form to what is near it. Now, Fuddruckers, I don't know how that got approved. I wasn't living here then, but that's a total eyesore. But if they build that building that they've designed, if that gets approved, then Fuddruckers is going to go the same way. And there are two other properties, the massage school down the road and on Charlotte Street, that got purchased recently. There's a burned out house right next to the highway that got purchased recently. So what happens when you allow a building, a modern structure like that to be built, then you can't stop it. And the next thing you know, every single property from the highway all the way down Charlotte Street to all the way, where do you stop it? So here we have this beautiful Grove Park Inn. Currently, people come to Asheville and they get to go down Charlotte Street. Yeah, there's a mishmash. I mean, there's things along Charlotte Street that are like, wow, how did that get there? It's not in keeping with the historic area, but at least they're small things. When you look at that little taco temple, that is a fabulous example of keeping the structure that's in place, turning it into a vibrant, wonderful restaurant that everybody loves. It has character. You replace those things and build a modern structure that's just like everywhere else, and people won't come. They don't want to come. They're not coming to Asheville for that. They're coming to Asheville for the quality and character that Asheville provides.
How does this keep happening? I mean, ever since I've moved here, all I see is people complaining about the hotels. They're complaining about the brewery. They're complaining about the loss of affordable housing, about the loss of the weirdness of Asheville. And yet, we have the city council that's all women. It's supposed to be so progressive. They're all woke. They're supporting reparations and tearing down the Vance Monument. And yet they seem to be not in cahoots with, but certainly very supportive of developers over what the people seem to want. What do you make of that?
Well, that has been, I am action oriented. Words mean nothing to me. I mean, if you read the wonderful language that's in the comprehensive plan, you would say, oh my gosh, I want to move here. They're so sensitive to the environment. It's all words. Actions speak louder than words, and the actions that the council is doing, they support this. They want this to go through. They want Charlotte Street to have this big muckamoo. And the county supported the Raytheon military complex without any review. And that was 100 beautiful acres that got wiped out, and they want 450 acres to wipe out. Everywhere you look, things are getting wiped out. You look at Woodfin and the Serenity development where he cut half of the top of a mountain, and there's this concrete oval-shaped strange thing. I thought, wow, are they going to put cannons up there, And they took out all the trees, and they're building these houses that are going to fall. I mean, you just cannot... They took all the trees out, cuts in a road, takes all the trees out below it. And the road, I've driven that road, and it's crumbling. It's going to continue to crumble because you can't do that. And the sediment that has landed in the people, all the residents who live below that, it's criminal, really. And all I can say is that I think that the vision, it comes down to vision. And I think when the vision of the mayor is for development, which she has clearly said she's pro-development. And I guess a lot of the Council of Pro-Development, Kim Rooney seems to be on our side. She's been the only one who has been really open and supportive, and I am so appreciative of her.
Kim Rooney?
Yeah, she has, she's participated and seems to really care, and I am so appreciative of her.
Well, are there conflict of interest going on here or what?
Well, it does seem, I'm not a conspiracy theorist or anything, but it does seem as though no one is really paying attention to the actual results that this is going to bring. When I think about leaving a legacy, what is the legacy you want to leave when you leave office, or your children and your grandchildren? I can't imagine that when you look at photos of Asheville, it's like, there was the rap in 1980. This development company came here and said, yay, we're going to tear down city blocks of these historic buildings and we're going to build a mall, and this wonderful group of artists got together and wrapped the perimeter of that property, and they went away and it didn't happen. What is the problem here is that every developer from Florida to Maine knows that North Carolina, from the state legislature to Asheville, has no environmental impact studies worth a hill of beans, and zoning has as much teeth as a meth addict, because you can just change it. You can walk right in and get a variance. Boom. Okay, this zoning is no longer that way. Okay, or you can get a conditional zoning and then you can change it. So it's all bogus. It means nothing. So we have to get people in office who have enough spine to say, we care about the character of the city. We care about the environment. We care about the health, safety, and welfare of our constituents. We want clean water, clean air, and we want a livable city. And
let me ask you something. Didn't you tell me that Esther Mannheimer, the mayor, is an attorney and she works for developers? She represents developers?
Yes. Well, her law firm represents the hotel industry. So her law firm represents hotels and represents developers. They're the like.
But is she representing this developer? And if she were, shouldn't she recuse herself?
I cannot speak to that specifically, but I do know that her law firm represents hotels, and there have been a lot of hotels that have popped up everywhere since I moved to Asheville. I'm like, whoa. They're everywhere and they're all ugly. I mean, most of them, it's just, there's this wonderful thing called pattern language, where you look at it existing like Montfort. When you walk into Montfort and you see these historic homes, they fit together. They make sense. It's a livable, beautiful pattern language, and there's big trees and wide sidewalks. And, that when you break that up, and introduce something that is completely just a non sequitur of an assault, what I consider an assault, what I consider the fart architecture that they talk about, that is, it's painful, and I would like to live my life sort of in a place of despair, and despair is where there is fresh hope and recovery from despair. We have so many examples of despair everywhere we turn in this town, where things have gone the way of some horrible, ugly thing, like when you come through the open cut and suddenly there's a hotel where there used to be this gorgeous view, your entrance into the city. Now there's this hotel, and it's like, it's horrible. And
well, so, we could spend a lot of time talking about what the problems are. I want to end the show by talking about solutions. And I feel like there's one thing that we haven't discussed, which is the right of the landowner to develop their land in the way that they want to. And it's very difficult when you're in a capitalist society. And trust me, I'm not too happy with capitalism these days.
Yeah.
When you are in a capitalist society, it's very hard to tell someone, whether they can or cannot sell their land to who and for what purpose, et cetera, et cetera. Now, when we met for lunch, you talked to me about a way that landowners could get properly compensated. Can you just talk about that for a minute?
So that was something that Randall Arendt introduced me to, and it's called a transfer of development rights. So, the only place in commerce that where you can say, when you go into a Volvo dealership and you see this broken down Volvo, but you see the souped up Volvo, and you say to the car guy, hey, I want this souped up Volvo, but I want to pay the price of that little dumpy car over there. Well, that's what's happened. That's what happens with land. So you go to a piece of property and it's zoned 1 house per acre. So a developer buys that property at 1 house per acre. He walks into this planning department. He goes, I want 10 houses per acre. And so he gets a variance and they say, here's 10 houses per acre. Fine. So he already, before he puts his shovel in the dirt, that land has an increased value because you can put more on that property. So it's already an increased value. So with transfer of development rights, if you're buying a piece of property that's zoned 1 house per acre, and you want to change it to 20 houses per acre because you're into infill, which is a really good thing in many ways, you can't just go in and pay $500, get a variance and do it. You have to purchase the land, those development rights from Farmer Joe over here, and buy what his zoning would be, say 5 houses per acre or whatever his zoning category is, and you transfer them over. So you're buying the rights. You're not getting this fabulous souped up car for the price that you paid for a little piece of nothing over there. You have to pay for the variance. You have to pay for that increase in value by purchasing the rights of some property owner over there. Now, if that property owner over there gets paid as though he has developed his land, usually people only care about getting the money, then Farmer Joe can continue farming, and that creates a balance between agriculture, which we need desperately to have since we seem to rely on it to live.
Where does this money come from? And if nobody has the ability to recoup, they're paying somebody to, I don't get this.
So the developer who buys this land at 1 house per acre, and then he's going to put 20 houses per acre, he's going to make a lot of money. He's not going to put 1 house per acre. He's going to put 20 houses per acre. But he has to buy the difference. He has to buy those rights from somebody over there. He's still going to make a lot of money. This is, transfer of development rights has been done. It's complicated. It's probably too complicated to actually go into the depths.
Because I'm missing it. It sounds to me like what we had in Los Angeles. If you wanted to develop something for housing, if you wanted to build luxury housing, you had to have 10% of that for affordable housing, which was, it sounds also like cap and trade when you're talking about.
It's a way, you can't buy, you just can't buy. Land is the only thing, the only commodity that you can actually buy at a certain cost and then change its value by just going into the planning department and talking to the council or whatever and getting that added density added to that property that you have bought. That's the only area that you can do that with. So there are ways that you can, it's like what we were trying to do with Asheville when it comes to trees. If you buy a piece of property and it's filled with a canopy of trees, you can't just level those trees. You have to, if every tree you take out, you have to replace with, a certain amount of trees to replace that big, beautiful, which is impossible to do actually, because those trees took 80 years to become the cathedrals they are. But there's a price.
You're messing up something somewhere else, because it's like in California where they had the big cap and trade bill to try to decrease global warming. They said, okay, Chevron, you can build your refinery in Richmond, California, as long as you buy some rainforest, in South America.
Right.
And what they'd end up doing is displacing the indigenous people who lived on the rainforest, where they were sustainably hunting and gathering and living off the land, putting them into the real economy where they had no skills. They
right.
becoming alcoholics or
Yeah,
whatever.
it's terrible. Yeah.
And it's just, I don't think that's a good idea. I think from as a point of view of a climate activist, what we do is regulation. We say, if you want to decrease emissions, ban fracking, keep it in the ground, don't have any more extraction.
Exactly.
So
right.
rather than saying, okay, developer, you can build your ugly development here as long as you preserve some land there. I don't know that I would be.
Well,
But let's not get bogged down, because we've run out of time, and I want to leave some time to talk about solutions. Where are you in the Charlotte Street fight? What chance do you have to stop that? And if anybody's watching this show that wants to get involved in either of these fights or involved in your organization, what should they do?
So they can go on grow-wise.org, and they can learn about us, and they can volunteer. We are working things out about our volunteer mechanism, because we really want to engage the community a lot more. And we're just trying to go through this, but we're only 4 months old. It takes a lot of people to have success, to fight something that like what is facing us here in Asheville. And I know that almost everyone I talk to really feels sort of disempowered. Everybody feels very disempowered. And between COVID and just the way, there's just a lot of things that are hitting us all right now. And so I would invite everyone to, for one thing, to really grieve. I have had to allow myself to really grieve along this process of what we are losing. And I care deeply about it. And I want my son and my grandchildren and many generations to come to have the beauty that I grew up with. Sorry, it does. But it's just real. It's not a game anymore. It's time to really to encourage, to write your city officials, to write city council, to set up meetings with the mayor, to really get down to the bare bones of what we're doing on this earth. If we want to continue in any way, shape, and form as a species, we have got to sit by the trees, under the trees, and listen. They are always there for us. They ask nothing of us. And we need to just breathe in a lot of, it's so overused, the gratitude, but honestly, it's just time to really figure out what's important to each and every one of us. And when I am working with communities in these issues, there is no politics that come into play.
Thank you very much for being on the show and talking about your fights. And as I always end all my shows, I say, stay safe, continue to wear your mask until we've reached herd immunity, and keep fighting. Right, Callie?
Yes, Lauren, thank you so much. You're fabulous, honey. And I so appreciate this time with you.
Thank you very much. Good night, everyone.